Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. How are you doing? How are you really doing? 2021 has proven to be a mentally challenging year so far for many of you. Do you feel like you're losing your mind yet? Well, if so, I hope this lecture helps some of you guys tonight. I got to give a quick shout out and a thank you to Functional Medicine University. They've had a lot of great lecturing doctors in the last year that I've used to kind of help collaborate tonight's lecture, and I hope you guys enjoy. Preventing Dementia. Here's my contact information. My next lecture, putting it all together. This is going to be a part 1 and part 2 all within this one lecture. We're going to go back to the beginning. This is going to be a great lecture for new patients, and this is going to be a good lecture even for existing patients, because when we talk about care packages and things I'm going to put together going in the new year for patients. So the part 2 of this is going to be talking about a little bit more in depth with COVID and possible long haulers with the COVID stuff as well. If I don't like this idea and I decide to ditch it all, I may just do a whole lecture on essential fatty acids. So I'm up in the air right now. Where have we been? Where are we going? Who knows? Dr. Tent's next lecture, I've been told that this may not even be his title, but it will for sure be December 1st. 100%, Dr. Gill's next lecture will be addressing female hormones November 3rd. Platform update announcements. If you've been a virtual patient at our office or want to become one, we are moving everything to the Doxy. If you are Skyping right now, I'm sure you've already moved over to the platform, so just a heads up with virtual patients there. Follow us on Facebook, subscribe on YouTube to our channel. You get all our updates when we upload things. Some of our protocols, setups are still there. Get connected. We are on everything, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook. If things get pulled on certain social media things due to censorship, we will have it on Rumble. We'll repost it any and everywhere. We don't care. It's going to get up. The information will get out. I've been a little quiet on some of my Instagram stuff. I've been busy at the office. When I have opportunities, I will do the Q&As. We'll do some themes throughout the week. A lot of the patients really seem to like the Q&As and when I go live, so I will try to keep that alive for you guys. If you've had a good experience at our office, what's your story? Give a little testimonial. We'll record you and put you out there. A lot of people don't really even understand truly to the extent of what we do at our office. The blog has been quiet. I've been busier doing the Instagram stuff. I'm even debating leaving the blog. We'll see where things go, but we do have a newsletter at the office. If you're not signed up on a newsletter, you could easily sign up on that through the website as well. I live to serve, I serve to live. I absolutely love what I do. Coming into work every day, serving you guys and helping people out. It's the dream team. It's awesome. Every day is a dream. If you've had a good experience with us and want to write us a review, we enjoy reading your reviews. We don't pressure anyone to put them out there, but we enjoy good feedback. It's about the time where I talk about Skyping patients and a little bit of before and after patient with Skype, but I'm going to take a little pause break and not talk about a Skype case as much as I just want to give a shout out to all my Skype patients, my colleagues all across the U.S. Every time I do a lecture, I always get emails, messages on all my other social media things of, hey, I enjoy this, thanks for that. It does not go unnoticed. I just want to give a shout out to you guys and thank you for following and watching and giving me good feedback. The new dog has stolen the show. That is Crimson. She's a few months old now, the mini golden doodle. If you're looking for a good vet in Michigan, we use Dr. Matt Outland Howell. He's a holistic vet. I highly suggest you guys to check him out. How do I keep my children healthy in any season, whatever season you want to call it? Simple stuff. I take their stainless steel water canister, 2 shots of the complete care spray, a little sprinkle of the buffered vitamin C powder, and some vitamin D drops throughout the week. It's very, very simple. This has been a bulletproof protocol for my children and patients at the office. October is Breast Cancer Health Awareness Month. It should be Breast Cancer Prevention Month. We are going back to our old group using ThermoScan. We prefer their readings and their consistency. Check them out. They're a great group. We've used them for the last decade and been happy to use them. Tried using someone else and just we weren't really liking the readings, and it seemed like they kept getting the same readings, unfortunately. So we're going back to our old group there. Dr. Jeff, I'm forced to get a COVID shot because of my work. How do I work on detoxifying some of the stuff out of my system? This is a starting point. I haven't talked about this as much as I wanted to in some of the since that past lecture when I first announced it, but I'm getting great results with it. I've had a lot of people inquiring about a forced COVID vaccine and how to work with pulling some of the stuff out of your system. If you followed my lectures before, my shake, I use nitro grains, the collagen powder, the chocolate powder, and the electrolyte all within there. It's a simple, budget-friendly shake. I need something that's more of a functional shake moving forward with myself and for you guys. We're going to start carrying an orthomolecular product called Mitocore, mixing a few scoops along with my collagen together with this. We're going to start carrying this at the office. So when you see this on this lecture, this will be in this office following and going forward. Why Mitocore? Recharges cellular energy production, supports immune function, increases antioxidant protection, supports detoxification, provides key micronutrients to optimize daily nutritional intake, helps alleviate the poor energy, mental fog, and fatigue. You see within here, you got NAC in here, which helps produce glutathione. Glutathione is your body's strongest antioxidant, and there's a reason I need more NAC to support your glutathione production in your body. Unfortunately, biotics research got hit pretty hard with the COVID in their chain supply, and a lot of things that most of our patients may already know that they've been on back order with a lot of products, unfortunately. This is something we're going to start carrying in the office when it comes back on the shelves, but I need glutathione protection for my patients because patients who are concerned not only about this vaccine, but the possible aspects of shedding, you need to keep your glutathione levels as high as possible. And this product is the one that I'm going to use and help promote it. You follow my lectures in the past, and this is key for tonight's lecture with dementia, sleep is absolutely key. I use an Oura Ring mainly at night just to measure my sleep, and I promise you what you think you're getting as far as sleep goes, you're not getting. You measure your sleep, it will prove you otherwise. I've been doing this the last 2 years now, and I've been super impressed with how well it measures my REM, my deep, my resting heart rate, and if I'm not rested, I won't push myself. My immune system has been absolute stellar, and I contribute a good bit of this just getting proper sleep and focusing on that. Last month, just to kind of calm my brain down a little bit, I played around with a few different things. It's awesome when you can measure your sleep and use different products to measure your sleep. Magnesium, 3 forms of magnesium in the MGzyme. Cava Forte, it's a little pricey through MediHerb. It's a special order one because we're not carrying it at the office as much anymore. But this has chilled my brain out. A lot of you patients need your brain chilled out. I rotate a few of these around. I still get my best measurements with my sleep using the magnesium with the valerian of MediHerb. And some patients, I'll rotate the Lyzyme Forte, the food grade lithium in there as well. Play around, measure it, see what works best for you guys. COVID-19. What more do we need to continue to say with this? This will always be a pandemic of the unhealthy, not the unvaccinated. It's not the responsibility of the unvaccinated to protect the vaccinated. That's the vaccine's job, if it works. Been screaming this from the beginning. Vitamin D status in hospitalized patients with COVID-19 infection. Vitamin D deficiency found in 82% of the people in the hospital in the study. What's our protocol? AC/DC like the rock band. Vitamin A, vitamin C, vitamin D, and more C. Zinc and iodine, the people losing their taste and smell, that's a zinc factor. It's not good enough knowing you're taking vitamin D. I want to know your vitamin D level. It's a simple, cheap blood work that we could run through LabCorp, check your vitamin D status going forward into any season, whatever you want to call it, cold, flu, COVID season, whatever. Vitamin D is huge in its association with cognitive impairment and dementia as well. Vitamin D is a neurosteroid hormone that regulates neurotransmitters and neurotrophins. It has anti-inflammatory properties, antioxidant properties, and neuroprotective properties. It increases neurotrophic factors such as nerve growth factor, which further promotes brain health and helps prevent the amyloid plaquing that accumulates with Alzheimer's disease. Yes, vitamin D is a preventative factor for dementia. This is absolutely driving me nuts that everybody is ignoring natural antibody protection. If you have had COVID, you have antibodies that protect you, which are better than what you're going to get in a vaccine. God designed an intelligent body to give you protection against pathogens and creating antibodies. You are better protected, and the literature's catching up to this, than what you're going to get in a jab. Bottom line, yet you're being forced to go down roads and get things put in your body that you shouldn't have to, having natural immunity. Vaccinated are 13 times more likely to catch the Delta variant. People who had COVID-19 are far better protected against the Delta variant than the double jabbed. The fully vaccinated are 13 times more likely to catch the variant than those who have had natural immunity. Researchers at Maccabi Health Services in Israel have discovered. Israel is a great example of being a highly vaccinated area and yet having huge upticks of COVID. If the vaccine works, why is everyone having COVID outbreaks? No one talked about Hawaii. Hawaii, small island, you had to test negative to go there. If you lived there and went back, you had to self-quarantine. Why would they have such a huge uptick in COVID? Locally around us, U of M's the next prime example, and I've got a professor that works here and some teachers I've talked to with this. Since they mandated their vaccine there, they got close to a 98% vaccine rate among their faculty and their students. It's all about health, but it's not about money. And yet they're going to pack out a football stadium over 100,000 people each weekend, but it's about health and not money. And yet if they could show that to the state that they have a high vaccine rate, they get money back from the state. But it's all about your health. Never about money. Just remember all that. COVID-19 and pre-existing inflammation. 94 to 97% of people who die from COVID-19 or hospitalizations are pre-inflamed. It's not the virus, it's from the host. America's pre-inflamed. Viruses don't kill people. Our body's immune response to the virus does. Most of these people are obese and overweight. This is Dr. Silverman talking. I had a great lecture talking about inflammation. Dive back on YouTube, check it out. A lot of good gems in that one. COVID-19, see, we're in September. We're up to about 15,000 deaths now as open VAERS. A lot of people complain, well, it's not confirmed, and you know, it's the way that they go after stuff on open VAERS. It's not accurate and this and that. If anything, it's underreported. And the bottom line is people have died from the COVID-19 vaccine. In 2021, if you had the COVID vaccine and you died from it, it's because you had pre-existing health conditions. In 2020, if you died of pre-existing health conditions, and you tested positive for COVID, you died of COVID. Gotta love how they play around with words. It makes sense if you don't think about it. So, what other complaints have people had that have had side effects of the COVID-19 vaccine? Miscarriages, heart attacks, myocarditis, being disabled, thrombocytopenia, life-threatening issues, severe allergic reactions, shingles. Yes, it's happening. Who's liable? Good question. Long COVID and Epstein-Barr virus, EBV reactivation. Of 185 randomly selected COVID-19 patients, 30% of them developed long COVID. Of those, 66% long COVID subject versus 10% controlled subjects positive for EBV reactivation. Reactivation of EBV may occur early in COVID-19 infections cycle. Patients and my young patients that have struggled to get back on their feet, COVID has reactivated EBV in their system, and this is the fatigue that they just can't get back up from. This is, to a muscle tester, this is easy to find. Doing some easy functional blood work is easy to find as well. Your body and your past infections will reactivate. The eyes are useless when the mind is blind. I love that phrase. Why don't Dr. Tent, Dr. Jeff, and Dr. Gill talk more about COVID? Why? Because half the stuff that we say, deer in the headlights, and will go over all your friends' head with this stuff, period. Most Americans right now, it's the little frog in a boiling pot of water. How hot does that water have to get for you to get out? I'm out. I'm done with this. I'm done with this mask crap. I'm done with the vaccine stuff. If you're scared, stay home, wear a mask, get a vaccine. There's risk to life. You have to move forward. How much of your rights do you want to lose? They're going to continue to shove this mask stuff down your kids' throat at schools to make them wear masks until they approve the shot for younger kids, and then say, well, now your kid has a choice. Continue to wear a mask or get the vaccine or continue to wear a mask. Your COVID-19 ID that's going to be digitalized on your phone's not that too far. I had a Skype appointment with a patient in Canada today. You think things are bad here, you should see what's going on over there. Oh, what's going on at the southern border? I got a Border Patrol patient. He's confirmed to me 200,000 people a month are crossing the border that do not have to get a COVID-19 vaccine. Minimal testing with them as well. Let that just sink in. University of Michigan survey looks at why Detroit's COVID vaccine rates lag behind the rest of the state. Forever, Detroit was stuck in the 30%, where most of Michigan apparently was, from what they reported, 50 to 60%. Why is Detroiters behind? And if they're this far behind and the vaccine works, and why isn't Detroit still struggling with COVID like crazy compared to the rest of Michigan if they're the under-vaccinated area compared to the rest of the state? Why are Detroiters not getting this vaccine? If you're an old-time Detroiter, an African American, you may remember Tuskegee experiment. They're not going to be your experiment again this time. Everyone else could be the experiment. Let's start diving into some stuff. Dopamine, smartphones, and you. Why are your brains cooked? Social media has killed you. Social media has killed this current generation. It's absolutely sad. No dopamine, no motivation. Whew. All the social media has cooked people. Why is a platform like TikTok winning? Your brains are so cooked, your attention span sucks so bad that you could only last 60 seconds to watch something, and this is why TikTok is winning. And with that being said, I'm proud to announce that DHS is going to be on TikTok for those patients. And the funnier part of this is this lecture will be playing in our lobby. A lot of people will be glued to their phones, and that will even go right over their heads. The hippocampus functions sense of smell, memory formation, thinking, sexual arousal, behavior, emotions. Stress will kill your brain. Stress increases cortisol. Cortisol shrinks the hippocampus in your brain. If you are not controlling the stress in your life, your memory will be affected. Dive back, battling adrenal fatigue. So many people dealing with stress in their life. My gosh, I've heard your stories room after room. And you guys have a lot going on, and it wears on me hearing your stories. I help try to carry your burdens, and there's a lot of burdens. There's a lot of people that are carrying a lot of stuff on their shoulders that they're not even talking about. I feel your pain, trust me. I work hard to keep my cortisol at a chill level. ADHS, I do 3 twice a day. I love my rhodiola. I actually will use a lot more of the other one, rhodiola ginseng of Medier. I was eating this like M&Ms today. Adaptogenic herbs will give you energy and keep the cortisol down, and you can still sleep good at night. If you don't know how to play those adaptogenic herbs, I highly suggest you look at it. And a lot of you patients that have these blood sugar issues, you got to get this under control because your cortisol is going up, which then makes your blood sugar go up and your insulin go up. So you pre-diabetic and diabetic patients that are struggling with your sugar and you're doing some of our protocols, you got to address the cortisol aspect of this because it's a huge link to helping you control your sugar. The effects of testosterone supplementation on cognitive function in older men. Reduction in testosterone levels in men during aging is associated with cognitive decline and risk of dementia. Animal studies have shown benefits for testosterone supplementation in improving cognitive and reducing Alzheimer's disease pathology. Why is testosterone low in the first place with these guys? Go back to the other side. Cortisol. Cortisol goes up, testosterone goes down. Stress is the #1 cause killer of today's guys. I'll prove it to you. I proved it in my past lectures. Well, let's dive into tonight's lecture in more depth. What is dementia exactly? A chronic or persistent disorder of mental processes caused by brain disease or injury and marked by memory disorders, personality changes, and impaired reasoning. 10% of the U.S. adults aged 65 and older had dementia in 2012. Americans fear brain deterioration more than any other disease. Why? Because there's a lot of research, unfortunately not a lot of cures. Dementia and Alzheimer's. Dementia is a general term for symptoms like decline in memory, reasoning, or other thinking skills. Alzheimer's is a specific brain disease that accounts for 60 to 80% of dementia cases. This is a picture, healthy brain on the left, Alzheimer's brain on the right. You can see the deterioration and the shrinkage there. It is a devastating disease. I wouldn't even wish that on my worst enemy. And a lot of you guys had older family members and have seen dementia or even Alzheimer's or both unfortunately affect your family. Fortunately, my grandpa, who's in a long-term care facility right now, I haven't seen him much since COVID. He deteriorated more with his dementia. He probably won't even recognize. He doesn't even recognize me if I went back to go see him right now. It's sad. I'm sure everyone knows someone affected with a form of dementia, and Alzheimer's for that matter. What are the risk factors for dementia? Stress, toxins, antigens, infestations, nutritional deficiency, sleep, sedentary and social issues. Types of dementia: inflammatory, glycotoxic, atropic, toxic, vascular, dazed. It's interesting to note that toxicity comprises the most cases of dementia. It accounts for approximately 60 to 70% of the cases. Here's a huge key and point to tonight's lecture. 60 to 70% of the cases of dementia are toxic. This is medications, chemicals, heavy metals, mold, alcohol use. Do you think this is preventable? Without a question of a doubt, yes. This is some of the testing I'm going to do more in depth with patients. We already do hair testing with patients to look at heavy metals, looks at digestion, looks at lithium levels and all that. That runs about 140. The GPL glycotoxic test will test toxic environmental elements, 173 different chemicals that it actually tests. I believe that one's a urine test. That runs at $219. I had these kits at the office. If I'm deteriorating mentally, a patient's deteriorating mentally, these are the two first things I'm going to go after. At the very end of my lecture, I'll give you a little bit more of a roadmap with things. This is from Dr. Jean Lorenz. She was on the functional medicine webinar, and these are areas that she said to explore. Cholesterol, low cholesterol. Your brain's fat. Low cholesterol is not good. Inflammatory markers like the C-reactive protein, sediment rate, homocysteine, insulin levels, looking at the vitamin D, fatty acids, amino acids, hormonal testing, food sensitivity testing. There's some things you could do at home that we'll talk about as well too. Mold testing, which I'll talk about later in this lecture again. As we're talking about the sleep, I'll tell you about some things further in the lecture when I talk more about that as well. Diet, the inflammatory things in diet, the toxic exposures, whether it's metals or chemicals, birth formation, medications, family history, dental issues, zinc, all that, the blood pressure, all these things play a role. You gotta analyze everything from every point of view possible. This is a test you could do at home, Montreal Cognitive Assessment Evaluation. You feel like someone's charting the road of dementia, this is something you can do at home. It's a nice self-test. One of my past lectures, there's a Netflix series, or I should say a movie, Prescription Thugs. You could probably still find it on there, and I'd highly recommend you to watch it. They quoted the 2011 UN World Drug Report, which said the United States, which makes up 5% of the world population, consumes 75% of the world's medications. We are a drug nation. The United States of America loves their drugs and medications. What do you think is killing most of your brains today? Your medications. Statins, Parkinson's drugs, tranquilizers, beta blockers, antihistamines, steroids, epilepsy medications, antacids, antidepressants, anticonvulsants. These are just some of the medications cooking your brains. Medications that block the neurotransmitter acetylcholine will lead to dementia. Having low acetylcholine levels in general is a precursor to dementia. These are just some of the other medications that will block the neurotransmitter acetylcholine and lead to brain deterioration. Symptoms of acetylcholine deficiency: forgetting common facts, trouble understanding written or spoken language, forgetting where you put things, difficulty remembering lists, instructions, or directions, disorientation, lack of passion, creativity, imagination, difficulty finding the right words before you speak, slow or confused thinking process, making simple mistakes at work. Good memory, poor memory. Poor memory, low neurotransmitters. Good memory, lots of neurotransmitters. Acetylcholine, low acetylcholine, lots of acetylcholine. It's that simple. Do your food cravings tell you something? These are foods that will naturally increase acetylcholine levels in your body. Dr. Brownstein, great doctor, works right around the corner from us as well. The statin disaster. Dr. Tent and I are so sick and tired of talking about statin medication and about lowering cholesterol with statins that we are completely burnt out. Dr. Jeff, why do you not recommend statin medication? Look at all of these side effects of statin medications with memory loss, kind of right in the middle. If you want to piss Dr. Tent off on a Monday morning, come in here and ask him if you think Lipitor is right for you and why you need to be on Lipitor and how it could benefit your heart and arteries. And it'll make him very happy on a Monday morning. Read the book. I'm sending you guys elsewhere. If you guys don't get it now with statins, there's no hope. You're just not going to get it. Statin cause brain dysfunction, memory impairment, cases of global amnesia, confusion, paranoia, disorientation, depression, and dementia. The highest concentration of cholesterol in the body is found in the brain. Lowering your cholesterol does not benefit your brain long term. It is that simple. Your doctor has you scared about cholesterol, but Pfizer has you covered. They've got Lipitor to help manage your cholesterol. One of the highest revenuing medications of Pfizer is Lipitor. One of the biggest side effects of it with guys is erectile dysfunction. One of Pfizer's other highest revenuing medication is Viagra. They know what they're doing to the guys. Oh, now your doctor's got you scared about COVID. Oh, Pfizer's got you covered. You got 1 shot, 2 shot, now it's 3 shots. Viruses mutate, they'll continue to mutate. Do you think it'll end at 3 shots? Nope, congratulations, you all have been sold a yearly flu shot at this point. If you are concerned about your cholesterol, you've got to run it in an NMR lipid profile format. This will tell us if your LDL is pattern A, which is good, or pattern B, which is the dense kind. Just knowing your total cholesterol on a generic blood panel isn't good enough because your doctors are going to say, well, if it's above 100 with your LDL, you need to be on a statin medication. Just got an email from a patient this week. His cholesterol is only total 169. He may have had a possible TIA, and they want to lower his cholesterol lower than it already is because they don't know what else to do. If you've had your gallbladder taken out, you are on a permanent low-fat diet. A low-fat diet does not benefit your brain. Without your gallbladder, you won't digest your fat-soluble vitamins A, D, E, F, and K, and we already talked about low vitamin D levels in dementia. But if you're not absorbing your essential fatty acids, that is all your brain food. Long-term wise, having your gallbladder out does not benefit your brain. Essential fatty acids. EFAs are hormone precursors, and most dementia patients are eating trans fats, not good fats. Unfortunately, the American diet is full of omega-6 oils and not omega-3. Omega-6 are more pro-inflammatory, where omega-3 are anti-inflammatory. Too much inflammation, we're an inflamed nation with too much of the omega-6 and not of the 3. On top of that, not enough people are getting enough brain food with their essential fatty acids. You got DHA and EPA. If you want higher brain support, you want oils and fish oil that is higher in the DHA content. And this is why I probably need to elaborate down the road with an essential fatty acid lecture. You guys that like charts, here's your omega-6, here's your omega-3, inflammatory, anti-inflammatory. Lack of essential fatty acids lead to neurological issues, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, major depression, psychotic disorders, cognitive function. The literature's all on the right. Thank you, Dr. Jean. Your dead stomach will lead to dementia. Why do people have dead stomachs? Whereas we're going to talk about it, medication-induced nutritional deficiency. If you're lacking thiamine, vitamin B1, zinc, chlorine to help produce stomach acid, you will have a dead stomach. Nervous system imbalance. So many people are stressed out, they're sympathetic dominant, and because they're stuck in fight mode, your digestion shuts off, and you have a dead stomach just because of that. All you patients on acid reflux medications, people taking this stuff, you absolutely can just turn off your stomach. Short-term relief, but not a long-term solution. Lack of good stomach acid, gas, bloating, indigestion, constipation issues. All your symptoms that you see right here, due to lack of good stomach acid. If you have low stomach acid, you're not going to break down your proteins. If you don't break down your proteins, you're not going to have enough amino acids, and you're going to have low neurotransmitters, specifically acetylcholine, because your stomach is dead. Other things that taking antacids will deplete: all your minerals, B12, you won't break down your proteins, and you turn off your immune system to your gut. Here's listed the B12, calcium, phosphorus, vitamin D, phosphoric acid, iron, zinc, B1. But yes, mainly all your minerals, the B12, protein, immune system, done. Let's talk more about B12. Vitamin B12 deficiency is linked to impaired cognition and memory, along with sensation of tingling and numbness, and outcome of poor myelination. What happens if you have low B12? You have high levels of homocysteine. High levels of homocysteine, you will have more problems with dementia. Your antacid medications block you from absorbing B12. If you have a dead stomach, the intrinsic factor doesn't activate properly to help you absorb B12. If you're a vegan or a vegetarian, you better be on top of your B12 level. Well, homocysteine, an overlooked cause of stroke and dementia. Innovative physicians are beginning to recognize that elevated homocysteine is also a major factor in the development of a wide range of dementias. Studies show that people with elevated homocysteine display cognitive problems and nearly 100% elevated risk of dementia compared to those having normal levels. A study of centenarians showed that individuals with normal cognitive function had lower homocysteine levels compared to those having dementia. Both Alzheimer's and Parkinson's disease, the leading causes of dementia in the aging population, have shown powerful associations with blood homocysteine levels, as have non-Alzheimer's patients. My heart factor, when I last checked that, 11. I got to be careful with my homocysteine levels. We want to see that 10 and under. I've had to have patients have strokes in front of their doctors before they ever ran that homocysteine level. And then when they finally ran it and saw that it was through the roof, they're like, my gosh, we should have ran that long ago. It's sad. It's absolutely ridiculous. High homocysteine levels is going to plaque the arteries in the brain, plaque the arteries all around. And it's the main reason of how it will push people into cognitive decline. Fluoride. This is another thing, this is probably the last lecture I am done talking about. If you don't get it by now, you're not going to get it at all. Go to fluoridealert.org. We have to continually tell you why fluoride is bad for your brain. You're just not going to get it. New mechanism explains increased risk of dementia. Millions of people around the world taking antacids, acid suppressants, PPIs for conditions like heartburn, gastritis, and stomach ulcers. I just need to re-emphasize this with patients. PPIs affect the synthesis of neurotransmitters acetylcholine. You're not breaking down the protein, you're not getting the amino acids, you're not making acetylcholine. Let's talk about some diet stuff in the brain. If you have Alzheimer's, what's an ideal diet for someone who has Alzheimer's? Your brain's 60% fat, cholesterol. A high good fat, good protein diet will do good for your brain. A keto-based diet, from Dr. Brenson, choosing foods with the GI index or glycemic index under 35, avoiding gluten, dairy, reducing toxic load, include good fats, avoid processed foods, eat smashed fish, intermittent fasting, keto flex, MCT oil, plant-based diet. We're going to talk about this ApoE4 a little bit later on. There's a reason that you need to test for that if you're going to follow the keto thing. These are great supplement recommendations from Dr. Brunson as well. Methylated B vitamins, vitamin D, vitamin E, K2, resveratrol, acetyl L-carnitine, coenzyme Q10, curcumin, magnesium. These are things that are great. You need something more specific. And I could go on and on this whole lecture about great supplementations for your brain, but this lecture tonight is going to be, why is your brain not working? Why are people going to dementia? Like I said, you got to focus. 60-70% of this is toxicity. This stuff is preventable with a lot of people. You got to catch it because things I'm going to talk about are very, very sneaky that we will further get into later in this lecture. Choline is awesome. Choline for Alzheimer's disease. Benefits of choline supplementation: reduce activation of microglia. Reduction in microglia suggests ways of treating broad range of disorders: TBI, Parkinson's disease, multiple sclerosis. Choline blocks production of amyloid plaquing, which is seen in Alzheimer's disease. This is in Cataplex G. I take Cataplex G on a regular basis. This standard process has regular choline. Some of the cholines in your AF beta food as well. Choline converts to acetylcholine, your key neurotransmitter for your brain. It's just another slide that talks about the benefits of a ketogenic diet and it benefiting Alzheimer's patients. Getting back down to this APO and testing this is something key. Man, this is something that I'm going to recommend patients who I'm following with that are concerned about Alzheimer's and dementia, because APO or APOE, E4 increases the risk of Alzheimer's disease and is also associated with an earlier age of disease onset. Having one or two of these alleles increases the risk of developing Alzheimer's. About 25% of people carry one copy of it and 2-3% carry two copies of it. If you carry any of these copies of this APOE gene, a ketogenic diet is not recommended for these patients. It actually makes them worse, and that's a key point I want to tell you about that. So if 60-70% of dementia is toxicity, what do you guys need to do? Important lifestyle changes: exercise, sleep, stress reduction, brain training, resolving inflammation, inhibit new inflammation, resolve all inflammatory sources, work on the gut. Dr. Silverman's big on the gut. I'm big on the gut. The gut is your second brain. You cannot ignore it. If you are not sleeping, you are going to affect your brain. Chronic lack of sleep over decades will lead to Alzheimer's, dementia, and brain deterioration. If you have one bad night of sleep, going through the next day, you are mentally foggy all day long, cognitively just not all there. If you're doing that every single day and not sleeping, what do you think that's going to do to your brain long term? That's why that Oura Ring is great. The Whoop is great. The Fitbit, there's things you could use to measure your sleep. I highly recommend it. Sleep apnea is something that I would definitely rule out with a lot of patients, and there's some apps, just great apps on these phones these days. There's one called Sleep Cycle and there's one called Snore Lab that could record you at night and give you a sleep score, and you could hear your recording if you're stopping with your breathing, this and that. If you suspect something based on that, or even want to further have a sleep study done, get it done. If it's mild to moderate sleep apnea, there's dental devices that you could use to kind of help versus having to use a CPAP machine. There's different options, but if you're not sleeping, you need to get on top of that. Prediabetes and diabetes is a risk for cognitive decline and dementia. Why is that? In this research, the author reports that both prediabetes and diabetes were associated with an increased risk of vascular dementia and cognitive decline, while diabetes was also associated with an increased risk for all-cause and Alzheimer's disease. If your A1C is up and elevated, being pre-diabetic or diabetic, it will lead to dementia with your brain. Why is that? Primarily because of this insulin-degrading enzyme. Insulin-degrading enzyme is a proteolytic culprit of various beta-forming peptides, both extracellular and intracellular. In simple terms, if your blood sugar is chronically high, this insulin-degrading enzyme's chronically running high. If that's running high, you will prevent plaque long-term in the brain. Non-alcoholic fatty liver disease and dementia. A study from the Journal of Neurology revealed that non-alcoholic fatty liver disease is independently associated with cognitive impairment, Non-alcoholic fatty liver disease is an umbrella term for a range of liver conditions affecting people who drink little to no alcohol. As the name implies, the main characteristic of this is too much fat stored in the liver cells. Dementia and non-alcoholic fatty liver disease are two frequent conditions that share underlying risk factors, mainly in the realm of metabolic disease. This is all driven by insulin resistance. And the same insulin resistance that's going to further fuel that insulin degrading enzyme that is leading to brain deterioration because of elevated blood sugar. If you have dementia and you get a bladder infection, it could push a patient into delirium. Delirium is the acute confused state, agitation, restlessness, difficulty concentrating, withdrawal, hallucinations, or delusions. This is important to recognize because even patients who don't have dementia have a little underlying stealth infection. It can mentally cloud you and change your thinking. A lot of these patients, I will even run lab work and urine analysis, and a lot of people sometimes carry a little underlying infection in their bladder and they don't even know that they have something going on, and it can cognitively change the way you're thinking. Gut on fire, brain on fire. If you have gut inflammation, it will metabolize and push into brain inflammation. This is why diet is so key. This is why I run a lot of food sensitivity with patients, the sensitive 7, and even further testing with patients, because if there's gut inflammation, you could get inflammation on the gut, you could help support brain health with patients. Diet associated with inflammation in Alzheimer's disease. Neurocognitive disorders such as Alzheimer's disease affect millions of people worldwide and are characterized by cognitive decline. Human and animal studies have shown that chronic immune response and inflammation are important factors in the pathogenesis of Alzheimer's disease. Inflammation will further lead to amyloid plaquing in the brain. Controlled inflammation, you can help a brain. It is that simple. Dr. Russell Blaylock is a genius and way ahead of his time. When I talked about my brain lecture probably about 7-8 years ago, I did it based on his excitotoxins book. This is important to know right here. What are excitotoxins? There are substances added to foods and beverages that literally stimulate neurons to death, causing brain damage in varying degrees. It's linked to neurodegenerative diseases such as Alzheimer's, dementia, Lou Gehrig's disease, and others. These are things that are put in your food and your beverages: MSG, aspartame, sucralose, hydrolyzed protein, aspartic acid. This creates these neurons to overfire and create inflammation. Microglia activation, oxidative stress, inflammation. The microglia activate, excitotoxins, and then the neurons just die out. So microglia activation, the cytokines, which are inflammatory, inflammation goes up, nerves die. This is the same thing that happens with these athletes getting multiple concussions. One concussion to the head, microglia activate, they calm down. Second concussion, they stay activated, they continue to stay activated, continue inflammation, long-term breaks down these neural tissues, and this is why some of these athletes with multiple concussions over the years have brains when they're 50 years old that look like Alzheimer's people when they're 80 years old. It's sad. How many concussions can you have? There's a big gray zone with this stuff. So inflammation is key. Let's talk about triggers of the immune response and inflammation. What's causing inflammation in the body with most of you guys? Poor diet, nutrient deficient stuff, dental problems going on, radiation, leaky gut, oxidative stress, psychological stress, injury, food, environmental allergens, infections in the body, smoking, high blood pressure. All of these things are creating inflammation. Long-term uncontrolled inflammation will lead to issues in the brain with deterioration. What causes vascular inflammation? Right here, high elevated CRP, homocysteine, uric acid, lipoprotein A, fibrinogen, endotoxins, leaky gut, like we said before, too much omega-6 versus 3s, elevated ferritin iron issues in the body, obesity, insulin resistance, hypertension, oxidative stress, smoking, hyperglycemia, all these factors, dietary factors, infections, these are all key things that are going to create inflammation in the body. Easy things that we could even measure and preventable. It's just a picture that shows foam LDL creating a foam cell in the beginning of plaque. What happens? You get plaque, calcification, inflammation that leads to atherosclerosis. If you're plaquing your arteries, you're getting lack of blood flow throughout the brain. This is why an herb, ginkgo, like people say ginkgo for thinko, there's a lot of medical literature that talks about ginkgo for various forms of Alzheimer's and dementia and supporting that, because ginkgo is a blood thinner which will help with circulation of blood throughout the brain. Low-grade chronic inflammation zaps dopamine in your brain. Growing evidence shows that the brain's dopamine system, which drives motivations, directly affected by chronic low-grade inflammation. All this little micro-inflammation is continuing to zap the dopamine in your brain, on top of what the social media is already doing. Sleep loss and inflammation. Lack of sleep, increased cytokines in the body which are inflammatory. You're inflamed because you're not sleeping. Curcumin improves memory and mood, a new UCLA study says. In short, curcumin will decrease inflammation and prevent plaque formation in the brain. We have plenty of supplements that have curcumin in it: turmeric, forte, boswellia, Vitanox. Pick one which one works good for you. Inflammation support goes a long way. Now, the next thing I'm going to bring up again, I had a lecture back on this in May 2019. If you want more in-depth talk about this, dive back on this lecture. Too many doctors are missing what mold is doing in the body. These are symptoms, top mold exposure symptoms: fatigue, weakness, headaches, light sensitivity, poor memory, hard time finding words, concentration issues. These are all the symptoms if you're being exposed to mold that a lot of doctors are missing. Common misdiagnosis due to mold: fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue syndrome, Lyme disease, IBS, multiple chemical sensitivity, deconditioning, stress, anxiety, depression. It's all in your head. If you can't find it on blood work, just tell the patient it's all in their head. That's the normal diagnosis that I hear patients tell me that their doctor tells them, unfortunately. If you feel that mold may be a possible issue, go to vcstest.com, run the eye test. You do each eye on the computer, pay for the results, $10 or something. It's a simple self-test you can do at home. If it's positive for biotoxins, you better start looking into where you could possibly be getting mold from and doing some mold testing on yourself and at your house or work, because it's very important. This is one of my patients just a few months back. 3 high levels of different molds, urine-based tests of Great Plains Laboratory, mycotoxic test, runs $299. The ochratoxin A is through the roof. The other 2 down here are through the roof. This is important because ochratoxin A, studies have shown that OTA can cause significant oxidative damage to multiple brain regions and the kidneys. When I did that mold lecture, I had a patient I was working with. She was exposed to this. She was telling me the story of how they found this originally. It was such an interesting story. They hunt in Michigan. They had a camper that's somewhere out in the woods. It got heavily water damage from rain and weather that they didn't know was really an issue, and the whole thing was soaked with mold. Is an older gentleman. His brain deteriorated so quick, and he had Alzheimer-like symptoms that made no sense to anyone, and because it happened so quick, he ran into the right doctor that ran that test and found it was ochratoxin A, and as soon as start removing that mold factor from him, he made a complete 180. This is why it is that important to look at heavy metals, look at chemical toxicities, rule out the mold stuff, because a fourth of the population cannot detoxify mold. If I had 100 people in our office and this building was soaked with mold, a lot of people wouldn't have symptoms, but 25 of the 100 people would have symptoms. Heavy metal toxicity, that's on YouTube as well. Dive back on that. We'll talk a little bit about that right here now. This is a $140 test. Looks at heavy metals, look at your digestion, look at lithium levels, see if you're absorbing things going back and forth. If you're not absorbing things, you're going to go here to the left. Aluminum, lead, mercury, that will cognitively affect you. You need to know if those levels are high on you. Aluminum symptoms of prenatal dementia or Alzheimer's disease are observed. This is why we need to know if there's aluminum that's a problem in your life. It's elevated in children and adults with low zinc and behavioral learning disorders such as ADD, ADHD, and autism. Had a patient just a few months back, symptoms left eye twitching. She was complaining about memory issues, forgetting a lot of things, poor focus. Had some weight concerns as well too. It's like, okay, let's start off, let's run a hair test. Boom. Aluminum, come through the roof. I don't even know where it ends. No end in sight. Younger adults, if you're soaked with aluminum, short-term memory is one of the first things that will go. A lot of these younger individuals will use, and I forget what hers was, but a lot of people use the antiperspirants that are soaked with aluminum. You're putting aluminum in yourself daily, and that's what it will do. Lead. Symptoms are associated with lead are vague, but include loss of appetite and body weight, poor memory formation, fatigue, constipation, headaches, inability to concentrate, and decreased coordination. I got a great family that I'm treating right now, and I'm sure they're going to watch this lecture. They live down in Wyandotte. Checked one kid for a hair test, found out he had lead, so now he had to do some investigation. So everyone in the household ran hair tests to find out they all had lead, to just finding out yesterday, because they were just saying yesterday that their filter on their sink in Wyandotte was not working properly, and lead is in the tap water there, and this is why lead is high on all of them. Sneaky stuff. It's sneaky. A hair test is simple to run. Mercury. Symptoms may progress with moderate or chronic exposure, and symptoms with anorexia, numbness and paresthesia, headaches, hypertension, irritability, excitability, and immune suppression. This is numbness, tingling, tremors, incoordination, anemia, psychosis. Mercury, there is no safe amount of mercury for your brain. I need to remind everybody that. Flu shots and Alzheimer's disease. This is from Dr. Hugh Fundenberg. This is an old thing that we used to hand out to patients that hand out in our office. He stated if an individual had 5 consecutive flu shots between 1970 and 1980, his or her chances of getting Alzheimer's disease is 10 times higher than if he or she had 1, 2, or no shots. Of course, everyone shot him down and said, "Oh, no, that's wrong. That's, his early days of censorship." There is zero. It's bottom line. Zero amount of mercury. You don't want any mercury in your body. There is not a safe amount of mercury to have in your body for your brain. We had a guy from Channel 7 News that promoted the flu shot every single year. He had a tremor when he came to see us. His tremor was so bad, his eyes were so dead. He was only in his late 50s, and his mercury was through the roof on his hair test. Yes, these flu shots contain mercury. You don't want mercury in your body, period. Sources of toxic elements. Here's a little, if you ran a hair test and you know, looking at where some of these things are coming from, this book is great. Here's a little cheat sheet for you guys. 5G. What's 5G doing to you guys? Well, 5G is affecting your skin, your eyes, immune suppression, and neurodegeneration. More current literature, check it out. 5G is slowly cooking your brains. 69-year-old male, memory problems. Aluminum, homocysteine too high. 2 big factors for him affecting his brain. Simple stuff to run, cheap. Lithium. Numerous studies have found that a common mineral heals the brain by stimulating the growth of new brain cells and protecting brain cells from every known neurotoxin. It has been shown to reduce the incidence of violent crime, homicide, suicide, and drug addiction while preventing the brain shrinkage and memory loss that otherwise occurs naturally with age, as well as helping people with alcoholism, Alzheimer's disease, depression, Parkinson's, stroke, cluster headaches, and traumatic brain injury. This is something so easily seen on a hair test. And that's why I cannot say enough, run a simple hair test. So where do I start? Hair testing to check for heavy metals, the GPL toxic profile, if you feel your brain's deteriorating and you want to look at all aspects of things, a simple saliva cortisol test to look at your cortisol all throughout the day. An at-home Montreal cognitive assessment test is simple. If you feel mold's an issue, the VCS test. Blood work. We run all this blood work at the office, and then on our panel, we'll look at your heart factors, food sensitivities, the A1C, as well as the APO4. All great things. We will look at every aspect of this. These are other things that you could run a haircut or a hair test for that will benefit you looking at. Heaven and earth will disappear, but my words will never disappear. The one and only truth is found in the Bible. Worry about nothing, pray about everything. I had a patient that asked me, where do you see things going in the next year or two? I told her I see it getting a little bit worse before it gets better. Make an office visit. These are the supplements that we carry at the office, our main ones, I should say. My previous lecture list is growing. Questions, concerns, email for those of you who've made it to the end of the lecture. Thank you and God bless.